Would you trust, though, laying a touchdown and a hook against a Commanders team that we don't even necessarily know who's starting under center this week?
Well, I love the setup, LJ, because we got the drum roll.
Thank you.
Grrr. The Commanders are going to roll with Sam Howell at quarterback
Yep.
for
Whoo!
the finale against the Dallas Cowboys. So that decision was just made earlier today,
Very
and
recently.
it's really hard to determine what's the motivation for the Washington Commanders. Like, you had an opportunity to play for a playoff spot last week against the Cleveland
Mm-hmm.
Browns at
Yeah.
home, and you dropped the ball. So, I mean, I could kind of bark up this narrative like, hey, even though they lost last week, there's nothing more that they would want to do is like Dallas Cowboys. That's a division rival. You always want to play those teams close. And say, for example, Dallas had an opportunity to get the number one seed and you prevent them from doing that. Maybe you kind of head into the offseason with that on your back. But just can't trust the Commanders. Like, can't
Mm-hmm.
trust them to be competent on offense. You can't trust, I think, at this point, the coaches to make the right decisions because I really didn't understand. I know that Taylor Heineke had some turnovers against the San Francisco 49ers, but hindsight is always 2020. But I mean, all of y'all have seen it. Like, there's no way you felt that you had a better chance at winning with Carson Wentz over
No
Taylor
way.
Heineke. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the team knows that. And I think you saw that from the team in that game. Like, obviously, it's not the team throwing those interceptions, it's Carson Wentz, but there's probably some other things that come into play, maybe from the defensive side of the ball, where they see Carson Wentz just turn over the ball and like, man, here we go with this again. Like, and they just don't give it their best effort. And that's how
Yeah.
you end up seeing Deshaun Watson having his best game of the season. That's how you see Nick Chubb running for over 100 yards because it's like, all right, we don't have faith that this guy at quarterback. And because the coaches have faith in putting him in the game, we don't have faith in them either. And maybe that's why we saw the Washington Commanders lay down. And so, I mean, we probably can anticipate them laying down once again, even though they shouldn't against their division rival, the Dallas Cowboys. But just to kind of back this all up and look at it from another macro level, we talked about all these different narratives and trying to figure out the motivations of these teams. We understand that the Dallas Cowboys have an opportunity to vie for that number one seed. We know that more than likely they're going to win this game, but by how many points, that's yet to be determined just because we don't know what motivations they'll have in the second quarter, in the third quarter, as some of these other games are playing out. So with all that, I would probably kind of stay away from this one. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that the Washington Commanders at least just put up a damn fight, especially with that performance that they showed against the Cleveland Browns. Like, that to me was embarrassing because, I mean, our whole goal is to try to win the Super Bowl, which means that our number one priority is making the playoffs. And when you have an opportunity like that sitting in front of you and you lay it down like that against the Cleveland Browns, who had nothing to play for, I mean, man, that's just a stain on your franchise that's going to take more of an offseason to get rid of.
Absolutely. I know. It's crazy, Jared, when you see the look ahead line on December 27th was the Commanders laying 4.5 points. Now the Commanders are getting 7.5 points. I mean, that line moved heavily in this game pending result with the results of week 17. What are your
Yeah.
expectations for the Commanders in this one? It is Sam Howell's first career start. Maybe he comes out hungry, wants to prove himself here, but at the same time, we don't really know what to expect.
Yeah, you're right. We don't. Now, the one thing we can expect is the unexpected because that's the unknown of a new quarterback that we have no priors on. And what I mean by that is higher ceiling, but also lower floor, which makes things very difficult to gamble on. Because I want a range. I want to know that I think the Commanders are going to win or lose this game by, let's say, a 3 or 4, 5, 6 point range. With Sam Howell, he could come out and look great. And there's no tape on him. And, Washington's got some weapons, and we don't know. We haven't seen him.
Mm-hmm.
We do not know. We are guessing if we think he's going to come out and play well or not well. The one thing I do know is of all of the lines this week, this one was the biggest mover. So it closed on last week, 4.5, and then reopened 7 on the other side. 11.5 points is what the quantifiable motivational angle is here. And it's both sides. You add motivation to Dallas because they can get the number one seed. You subtract motivation from Washington because they got eliminated. So it's like when you're playing Sonic the Hedgehog and you go through one of those like turbo boosts, like that's what the accelerator did here with Washington falling out of the playoff race on Sunday and Dallas staying alive for the number 1 seed. It was a double boost, double shot of motivation on this point spread. So it makes things very difficult to really grasp and really find any value. I will say this, since Howell was confirmed as the starter about 2 or 3 hours ago, seen a little bit of a move towards Dallas, and it's through that key number of 7 now. So the market downgrades Howell a little bit from Wentz, as hard as that may be to fathom. But again, I think it's a higher ceiling, lower floor scenario, and I don't really see any value here on either side. The one thing I'll close with, and this is, I think, a good summation of Washington's season. After the game, Ron Rivera was asked about, well, if you get eliminated tonight, do you start Howell next week? And he looked at the reporter like, wait, we can get eliminated today?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you didn't know that, Ron, maybe don't admit that to the media, because that's just, maybe you coach that game a little differently if you think, oh, if we lose, we might get eliminated tonight. And he clearly had no idea that his team could possibly be eliminated from the postseason on Sunday. So just a bad situation for Washington, and it just makes this game really unbettable from a side or total perspective, I think.